When we compare L-size mining ships, we probably come to the conclusion that the Crane Sentinel must be really good with all that cargo space. But is it really the best? And which engine to use, since mining ships spend a lot of time just flying around without using their travel engines. I was curious if normal speed is more important than travel speed. And of course, I was interested in a price-performance ratio. Before we jump in our test, I must acknowledge that mining is more complex than I thought, and the test gave only a partial answer. Personally, I find myself left with more questions than answers. So I tested all L-size mining ships with all types of engines. I run the tests in two different systems, Asteroid Belt and Segaris. These two systems have different amounts of ore and hydrogen available. So I could see the difference if we mine in systems that have plenty or barely enough for all mining ships to mine. I even considered that mining drones are very slow, and therefore the use of mining turrets might be better, since the ship is forced to move closer to the asteroid. I also tested if the amounts of mining drones and service crew had an impact on the mining yield. In the last step, I compared them all based on their price performance. For the test, I created a custom game with all the variations of L mining ships together with 10 mining stations in the middle of the Asteroid Belt and Segaris. The trick behind mining stations is that I can simply assign single ships to each, activate Zeta, get some real work done, come back after a while, and take the difference between two data points from the resource storage level and divide them by the time difference to get the average yield per hour. When a miner delivers 4 to 5 times an hour, I easily got the average from 20 data points per miner. I used 10 mining ships at the same time to create competition between mining ships, as in a normal mining scenario. Before testing, I made a save so I could run each test with the same starting conditions. As mining turrets, I chose the argon ones, because of their faster rotation speed. When I had L and M slots available, I only equipped L mining turrets, because they have way higher range. And we shop the asteroid before the M ones are even in range. The remaining turret slots I filled with flags to deal with carg, but normally L-size shields should bring enough recharge rate to keep the mining ship safe. After running the test, we found that each mining ship had pretty constant results, so we can assume that the different engines have a constant influence on the mining ship's performance, except for the gas mining ships in Segaris. I assume the system wasn't producing enough hydrogen per hour for them. There's also a website where you can check how much of each resource each system can provide per hour. I put the link in the description. If you look at the yields per hour, we see that in the asteroid belt, most ships did best with the Terran all-round engine. But the best results came from the Crane Sentinel with the Argon travel engine. But when we look at the results from Segaris, we find that the split all-round and the Pyramid all-round did better. Or in other words, normal speed becomes more important when there are less mineable resources available. I assume that in the asteroid belt, our mining ships have only to travel to few mining spots, soak them empty, and travel back. While in Segaris, they have to go from spot to spot, and since the AI is bad at using the travel engines, they just fly slowly between them, which makes normal speed more important. At gas mining, Terran all-round and Terran travel engines did best again in the asteroid belt, while in Segaris there's a trend towards the Teladi engine. Overall, determining which ship performed best is challenging, due to the results being closely grouped together. Perhaps price performance will put the results into perspective. But what we clearly see is that the resource density influenced the yield, which also led in Segaris to slumps in the yield. When we compare the yield of the M mining turrets with the L mining turrets, they appear to be closely matched. I see no reason to delve into lengthy speculations when there are better alternatives. Next, we have the crew test. In the asteroid belt, there's no trend toward more yield per hour between more crew and more skilled crew visible. However, in Segaris it seems that the crew has an influence of around 20%. This suggests that the crew has a stronger impact when the resource density is lower, which makes sense because the ships need to maneuver more between mining spots. I also must admit that the Segaris test partially ran in high attention mode, which could have influenced the ship performance, but this requires further testing in the future. In the mining drone test, we don't see a trend between the yield and the amount of used drones. This feels contradictory for me, but it is possible that the time for the ore collecting step is too small compared to the overall process time. Finally, I have the most important part. How do all mining ships perform in relation to their purchase price? I took the prices from the custom game creator since it is faster than calculating them, and more consistent than the in-game price fluctuations. If we build the ships in our own shipyards, the results won't change, because we only save the software prices, which is neglectable. So to compare all large mining ships, I use the prices when they have only mandatory gear installed, and the prices when they are fully tier 1 geared. This way we can get a feel for how the price-performance ratio varies when choosing the ships that are adjusted to our needs. For the M-turret slots, I used Argon Flag, large shields Paranit MQ1, because they have the best recharge rate of all L shields, and for the M shields I used the Deladi MQ1, because they have the highest shield capacity. If we now compare the mining results, we see that the Crane Sentinel with the Argon travel engines has even the best price-performance ratio in the Asteroid belt. And all the Terran engines show that they are really pricey and not worth it for mining. In Segaris, it is really hard to say which ship performed best, but I think we still see the trend towards Paranit and split engines. But overall, if you are going to mine in systems with low resource densities, just pick one of the better performing ones that you like the most. In my gas mining scenario, the Argon Travel Magnata Sentinel performed well in both test systems. If gas is more rare, the Titonius Vanguard seems to be a good choice. Overall, I think the main lesson we can take away is that the best mining ship can't do its job properly if the system is overmined, and that we have to check before adding more mining ships if we are close to the limit. Happy mining!